our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition from your program Body and Soul. In today's edition we are going to talk about a new system of education, or a system of education which is existing a long time ago but was not very well known for us, which is the Montessori education approach. To shed more light on the Montessori education, we are very much delighted to have our dear guest, Ms. Dina Medhat. She is the CEO and co-founder of the Montessori Tube. Hello, Ms. Dina, and thank you very much for being with us. Can you tell us what's the Montessori education and what's its history?
Well, actually, the Montessori education, it dates back to 1907. It was
1907?
Yes,
oh, wow.
That was over 100 years ago now. So it was founded by Dr. Maria Montessori. She's the first Italian doctor in Italy. She was a physician and scientist, and she based her observation on children on a scientific basis, which really helped her in the inputs that she added to this approach. And her approach actually is based that when it's mainly child-centered, not teacher-centered. So when she developed some concrete materials to teach the children each concept from a concrete level, and then they move to the abstract level. So this was basically the main idea of her approach, because Dr. Maria Montessori believed, like most of the educators now in this century believe, that children are born with eagerness to learn. They have love and eagerness to learn from within, if we know how to nurture this loving to learn. Yep.
Indeed. Ms. Dina, what's the difference between the Montessori way of education and the normal way of education?
Well, I will try to be as brief as possible, actually, to answer
no, take
this
your
question.
time. We want our dear viewers to know, because not a lot of us, even the people who are well aware about the education systems, they are not very much aware about the Montessori education approach. So can you elaborate about it?
That's true. I totally agree with you. And actually, I will try to sum it up in like 5 main points, the difference between the traditional and the Montessori education. I would like to start actually with the class setting. When you walk into a traditional classroom, you see desks. Each child has his own desk, and this is actually the traditional classroom. However, the Montessori classroom, you don't have assigned desks for each student, but you have, the child walks into the classroom, you have a prepared environment, an inviting environment.
To what extent it is different, sorry for interruption here, but to make it more clear to our dear viewers, what's the difference between the normal classroom here and the Montessori classroom? Because as you have kindly mentioned, there is a big difference, and that's why many schools do not adopt that approach, because it's a bit costly. So to what extent this difference in the set is important in the education system?
Well, actually, in any school, in any traditional system, you see like the admin and the teachers, they sit at the beginning of the year to set up a plan ahead of time, and they plan that, for example, in 1 week, the student is required to master all the continents and to be able to name them all. In the Montessori classroom, we follow the pace of each child, and we have mixed age classrooms. So you don't have a classroom for grade 1, a classroom for grade 2, and a classroom for grade 3. You have a 3-year span.
Ms. Dina, we are seeing here, it's a Montessori classroom, I believe.
This is, yes, obviously this is a Montessori classroom. You see,
it's more like a library from what I'm seeing here. I'm not
Isn't it inviting and relaxing?
Yeah,
yes.
of course.
So you see each child engaged on his own activity. Do you see any teacher here in this classroom?
Not really.
And do you see the children are engaged on the activities they are doing? And this is how
not only because it's a photo, it's the real thing.
This is a real thing. Yes. So, however, in a traditional classroom, once you walk into the classroom, you just see desks and assigned desks, and you see a teacher who is trying to spoon feed the information to the children.
And even all the kids or the students in the class, they are not the same age brackets.
They are not the same age, yes. So you will have,
because usually in normal educational system, and sorry for specifying this details, but we want to understand more, in each level or grade, all the kids same age more or less, unlike here. So why from I believe from 3 to 6 it's a category, and from 6 to 12 it's another category. So it's a large interval or bracket between
That's right.
the people who are sharing same classroom. So how is that?
Yes, and as we mentioned, the Dr. Montessori was a scientist, so she studied the children brain. So the thing is, if you have any children, you will see that even the brothers and sisters, you will see that the younger brother is learning from his older one, and he picks up the information right away. So this is to give the child, if the child is behind, he will have like 3 years to be able to go through a spiral curriculum until he masters the concept. If the child is catching up, then why do I have him stuck, for example, in grade 1 while he can learn the concepts of grade 2 from an older student? Plus, the children, they have love to learn from each other. So sometimes they would accept to learn the information and they would absorb it from a child, but as a teacher, if you try to tell him the same information, he won't accept it from you because he feels like you are an adult, and he kind of likes it more from a child like him.
Was the Montessori first introduced for the children with special needs, or it was introduced for normal kids? Because many people are believing that no, the Montessori is for kids with special needs. So
this is actually a common misconception.
So it's not right.
It's not really right, because the thing is, it's just back in 1907 when Maria Montessori started her approach. The thing is, she started with children who were deficient. That was the very beginning. And actually what happened, they asked her to take care of those children and to educate them. So what happened was that when they conducted some tests for those children compared to normal children, they excelled and exceeded more than just the normal children. So a lot of people asked her to try to develop her approach to be just for any children. So this is just how it started.
So it's not only for kids with special needs.
It's for everyone.
But is it introduced also for kids with special needs, not only for normal kids as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, and it gives them the chance. It's almost the only approach that would give them the chance to really learn at their own pace. Other approaches, if the child didn't pick up maybe within a week or two the concept that the teacher is trying to teach him, he would be labeled as a weak student and behind, and he would get like grades, bad grades, and he would feel that he's labeled. So, but the Montessori would follow the pace of the child.
Yes. Ms. Dina, what also about the kids with problems in learning and the kids with hyperactivity? Do you believe that this kind of education, the Montessori education, would be more beneficial, more appealing for them than the normal way of education?
Yes, I do believe this, because a lot of children now, because of technology, you know, it made the children, they lack the patience and they want to move all the time, and they are labeled with ADHD and stuff. But the thing is, because of the design of the classroom, because of the classroom setting of the Montessori classroom, it gives them freedom of movement. You don't want the child sitting down on his desk for like 3 hours and you expect him to sit down still. This is impossible. So it's an approach that believes that the child needs this movement. So in any classroom that I taught him before, in any Montessori classroom, I can tell you and I can assure you that I've never seen a child that I would consider as an ADHD child or hyperactivity, but I would be surprised to have a report that says this, although I just feel that he's a normal child.
Indeed.
Yes.
Now we'll go to watch this report by Samah Sharif about the Montessori way of education, and then I will be back to continue my interview with Ms. Dina Medhat about the Montessori education approach.
Montessori education is fundamentally a model of human development and an educational approach based on that model. The model has two basic principles. First, children and developing adults engage in psychological self-construction by means of interaction with their environments. Second, children, especially under the age of 6, have an innate path of psychological development. Maria Montessori began to develop her philosophy and methods in 1897, attending courses in pedagogy at the University of Rome and reading the educational theory of the previous 200 years. In 1907, she opened her first classroom, the Casa di Bambini, or Children's House, in a tenement building in Rome. From the beginning, Montessori based her work on her observation and experimentation with the environment, materials, and lessons available to them. She frequently referred to her work as scientific pedagogy. Although a range of practices exists under the name Montessori, some elements are essential. Mixed-age classrooms, with classrooms for children ages 2.5 or 3 to 6 years old, by far the most common. Student choice of activity from within a prescribed range of options. Uninterrupted blocks of work time, ideally 3 hours. A constructivist or discovery model where students learn concepts from working with materials rather than by direct instruction. Specialized educational materials developed by Montessori and her collaborators. Freedom of movement within the classroom. And a trained Montessori teacher. Based on her observations, Montessori believed that children at liberty to choose and act freely within an environment prepared according to her model would act spontaneously for optimal development. Montessori saw universal innate characteristics in human psychology, which her son and collaborator Mario Montessori identified as human tendencies in 1957. There is some debate about the exact list, but the following are clearly identified. Abstraction, activity, communication, exactness, exploration, manipulation of the environment, order, orientation, repetition, self-perfection, and work are also described as purposeful activity. In the Montessori approach, these human tendencies are seen as driving behavior in every stage of development, and education should respond to and facilitate their expression. Montessori continued to extend her work during her lifetime, developing a comprehensive model of psychological development from birth to age 24, as well as educational approaches for children ages 0 to 3, 3 to 6, and 6 to 12. She wrote and lectured about ages 12 to 18 and beyond, but these programs were not developed during her lifetime.
And welcome back, our dear viewers. We continue our interview with Ms. Dina Medhat about the Montessori way of education. And Ms. Dina, I'm seeing here some stuff, the globe and some other stuff which are related to the Montessori education system. Can you tell us about these stuff?
Yes, sure. So we have here talking about the concrete experience. If the start learning about the continents since the age of 3, and they master the 7 continents in the age of 3.
Isn't it too early?
Well, not too early for a Montessori child.
Okay.
Well, so Dr. Maria Montessori stressed on the educating the senses. So the child starts by tracing. This is a sand globe. Okay. So let's start by Africa. He starts to trace them and feel them and have this concrete experience of what's the shape of Africa before we move to the abstract level. So this is kind of a concrete level.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what's the difference between the two globes here.
Well, actually, basically when you feel them, you will see that here it's smooth, but here it's hard. So this sand gives them the concrete experience that goes directly to their brain, and they never forget
that it's not sea, it's not water, it's land, maybe.
It's land, exactly. So it's introduced actually that this is land and this is water. The hard part is land, the smooth part is water. Yep.
And here, the other globe, what does it mean, the other shape here of the globe?
This is kind of more abstract level.
Yeah, but different colors here.
And color-coded, yes. So now, remember the sand globe, this was Africa. Now, this is Africa as well, and now it's more visual. Concrete and visual. So
and both are in the same level of education. These are introduced for the age bracket between 3 and 6, I believe.
That's true. Yes, that's right. Okay. The same concept is actually in all areas in the classroom, in language, in math, in all the areas in the classroom. So we have here, these are called sandpaper letters. Okay, so the children don't.
So they are harsh too. The letter is harsh, like the African, the continents in.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
The globe.
So it's the same concept. Instead of just telling the child that on a piece of paper, this is the letter A, you make him have the experience, the sensorial experience and concrete experience of what is the letter A. And she stressed actually on this way of writing.
Can we make it more vertical?
Sure. This way?
Yeah. Okay.
So she stressed on this way of writing the letters. It's called cursive writing because it develops the reading and writing. So a child who is in a Montessori classroom can read and write within the age of 3 to 6. They can just perfectly read and write.
And these letters are introduced also from the age bracket from 3 to 6 as well.
That's right. Yeah, this is 3 to 6. Yes, that's right. And then we have more advanced materials in the 6 to 12 level. One of the actually the materials that really impressed me personally.
I'm seeing bowls and pyramids and other stuff. So can you elaborate about these materials as well?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Surprisingly, this is actually the parts of speech in English. So
it's grammar and vocabulary. And
that's
it's math too.
It's
math too?
We have other materials for math. But
so this is for languages?
This is for language, grammar. Yeah. This material specifically is for grammar. We have a lot of other materials. Yeah. So this is basically the noun, the verb, the pronoun, and there is a story behind each one of them actually that really the child can relate to. Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us more about why the bowl is the verbs, I believe?
That's
why?
True, yes. The bowl, when you introduce the child to a verb at the end is just an action word. So instead of just giving him a list study, you need him to feel what is a verb. So you start your lesson by rolling this ball to the child and ask him to roll it back. So this is action, isn't it? So this ball represents action and energy, and verbs represent action.
Indeed.
So it keeps like
in the mind of the kids
an impression.
Yeah, yes. And the pyramid you said for the noun and pronoun, I believe.
This is for a noun, the naming words, because the pyramid is one of the oldest,
Indeed, yes,
things
of course.
that ever existed.
Ms. Dina, can you tell us about the role of the teacher in the classroom for a Montessori students or for a Montessori education system? What's the role of the teacher here? And I believe you are teaching as well, Montessori.
Yes,
so can you tell us about your role in the classroom?
Well, the role in the classroom, actually first in Montessori, we are more called like a guide or facilitator. So we facilitate the learning for the child. So the child would just go and choose the work that he would like to work with, and I guide him through the process, or just present like one-to-one lessons or small group lesson. And then I just let the child learn at his own pace and stay away and watch.
But you are present.
Yeah, yes, you are present. And actually, I just want to stress about this point about the difference between traditional and Montessori classroom, about the teacher. So the teacher in a Montessori classroom, the greatest sign of success for a teacher in a Montessori classroom is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I didn't exist, as if I'm not there, but they are working, they don't need me. But in a traditional classroom, for a teacher to be successful, she needs to prove that her students got 10 out of 10 in a spelling test. This is a sign of success. They need me, they are not independent, they need me. But in a Montessori classroom,
because
if your children don't need you, then you are doing your job.
I believe it's totally different.
Yes.
Ms. Dina, can you tell us about the Montessori, to what extent it is socially and mentally effective for the kids, especially from the age bracket from 3 to 6 and from 6 to 12 as well? To what extent it develops their abilities mentally and socially?
Right, I will just give some examples. For example, in the level of 3 to 6, it's very important to strengthen the muscles of the primary fingers, because this is what will help the child in the writing process and the pencil grip. You're developing the pencil grip. So the way the materials are designed, they all strengthen these muscles in a 3 to 6 child. So when they move to the elementary level, they are perfect writers. They have a very neat handwriting, and they can hold the pencil properly, which is actually one of the struggles a lot of teachers face, along with a lot of other things, but I wish we could have more time to discuss. For the 6 to 9, actually, this freedom that they have inside the classroom, it gives them the ability to work together with their peers, which socially, the children at that level, they try to make their own friends in the 6 to 12, and they want to feel part of the group. So in this classroom, you give them this ability to develop this. And as we said, she studied actually the children, and she everything designed in the classroom, in the setting and in the materials, it helps to develop them mentally and socially, especially the concrete experience. No one, can ever disagree that this really keeps an impression in the brain itself. So it definitely develops him mentally.
Ms. Dina, to what extent the Montessori way of education is opposed to punishment, to reward, and to competition? To what extent, unlike the normal way of education, you always try to increase the competition feeling between the kids, the students, you always punish the people or the kids who are getting bad grades, and you reward the people who are excelling or taking A grades. So what's the difference here, and why it is opposing the punishment, competition and reward system here?
This is a very important point, because Dr. Maria Montessori was totally against reward and punishment, because learning in a Montessori classroom, it's something that comes from within. So their motivation is not a star that you give them, it's not a sticker that you give them, it's a motivation.
Isn't that the star that a kid would get, or something like that, a positive thing which could improve their way of thinking, or improve their enthusiasm to work more, or we are working on a totally different way of fulfilling them psychologically as well?
It's like when you want your child to get a short-term achievement. You want him to feel happy for one day, or you want him to feel proud of himself for his lifetime.
Of course, the other option.
So that's why it just makes like an effect of just one day maybe, but not because he's motivated, it's because he just wants the star that you want to give him.
Ms. Dina, are there public figures who use the Montessori way of education, or they were taught in that way?
Well, a lot of figures actually. I can just mention for now, like Google founders. Google founders, actually, they were taught in Montessori school, and there is a popular video for them when they just mentioned that they owe their idea and their creative ideas about Google because of their Montessori education. So I can say that they are actually one of the most common figures.
Indeed, of course.
Larry Page and Sergey Brin.
Now we have many national and international schools in Egypt with different curriculum. To what extent the Montessori way of education do fit in the national and international schools in Egypt?
This is actually a common question that we are usually asked in Montessori schools, like, so are you British or American, or are you national system? What are you doing? Do children in an international British school, do they learn about the continents? Yes, they do. Do they learn about the parts of speech and grammar? Yes, they do. And in American and in national. The thing is about the way. So it does fit because it's just the way. So it's nothing different. It's the same thing and same concepts, if even more. But it's really hard to have like following your own British system, and you want the children to apply them, and you at the same time you want to apply the Montessori principles. It's to have a fully authentic Montessori classroom that's going really to affect these students.
Ms. Dina, before wrapping up, do we have Montessori schools in Egypt, and do you think that we should have more and introduce the concept of the Montessori way of education more in Egypt?
Well, in the age of 3 to 6, we have a lot of preschools, and people now in Egypt are aware of the importance of Montessori's education. But there is a misconception that they think that Montessori stops at the age of 6. This is not true. Yes, we do have one and only one Montessori school in Egypt for now.
Only one?
Only one for the age from 6 to 9, and they are moving to 9 to 12. They are planning to move to it. And another school is going to open next academic year, inshallah.
Ms. Dina, to what extent you believe that the Montessori way of education, the Montessori education approach could create a better person, could create a better way of thinking and a better person with a better imagination and a better, a more wide way of thoughts and creativity?
To the extent that it's unlimited, I do believe in this more than 100%. Like I can tell you that a child who is 6 years old or 7 years old in my class, he is now developing a drama, a whole drama from scratch for the whole class to act. So he's creative, he came up with the idea, he came up with everything, and this is how all the children in a Montessori classroom are. They come up with their own ideas independently, and the teacher is just watching.
How did you get the idea of joining the Montessori system and being a teacher for Montessori education?
It came actually from...
Because it's not common.
It's not common. It was really a coincidence that I was actually, before being a teacher, I was in the customer service career. So I've seen how adults act, and I just had a major concern about this. And I thought that the way it comes from childhood. So I decided to move to children education, and I found that Maria Montessori's system was the most effective because this system she developed during the World War I and II, where corruption was everywhere, and she stressed on peace education. It's one main area of the curriculum, and it's only peace. If we teach our children peace, I think like we need this now. We are in a world now that we do need
to a
peace
great extent
all around. So it will definitely develop a generation that would improve everything around the world.
Hopefully. We want more Montessori way of education in Egypt. Of course, Ms. Dina Medhat, the CEO and co-founder of Montessori Tubes. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And with that, our viewers, we come to the end of this edition from Body and Soul. Hope you have enjoyed it, and till we meet again next week. I'm Rabia, signing off.